3 years. So
I cut in for a second. What did you mention? BizBuySell and Axial.net?
Axial.net is a site really for lower middle market. So and it's set up differently. As a broker, you can get a free account on Axial.net, and you can post your listings. However, it's really private equity firms, so, and family offices and search funds, and so they're looking for EBITDA generally over $500,000. So if your business is going to be like, if for a platform or a portfolio company, they're going to want oftentimes EBITDA over $1 million or $2 million. But for add-ons and roll-ups, they're looking for EBITDA, even 300,000, 500,000 might be okay if they're doing an industry roll-up. So let's say, for example, that an equity firm has a plumbing company, a large plumbing company in, Southern California, since that's where I am. If you have other companies in that space and they're looking to do a roll-up, then even if that company is only doing $500,000, that might be of interest to them because they're already in the space and they're basically expanding their market share, really. Okay. So BizBuySell is primarily Main Street. If you have a $5 or $10 million listing, you can put it in BizBuySell, but you're not going to get you're better off you'll get more interest in it from Axial. If it's a if it's a $5 million, $10 million listing. If it's $1 or $2 million listing, you may get some interest from Axial, but you'll get more interest from BizBuySell.
Okay.
And then there's also BizBen. Where are you located, Sal?
I'm based out of the Dallas area, Dallas DFW.
Okay. So BizBen.com used to be California only business for sale site. And in the past, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, I don't know how long ago actually, but Peter Siegel was the owner for a long time. I think he just sold it, but he expanded it to essentially handle nationwide. Never caught on nationwide the way that BizBuySell does because they're, the 800-pound gorilla. But BizBen, you may want to take a look at it. You do get some interest from it, but BizBuySell is where most of your leads are going to come from on small businesses.
So currently, and I apologize to interject here, but I'm not a business broker. I don't really know much about buying and selling businesses. I'm more on the commercial real estate side, specifically in multifamily. Okay. I do have a property right now that's a truck parking that's on acres that I'm selling, and the truck parking obviously is a business that is on top of the acreage, right? Mm-hmm. So I was trying to figure out, because with my experience, I would see, and the EBITDA is very similar to what a T12 would be in multifamily, where you have the income and the expenses and you get the NOI. Right? It's almost translatable. The issue that I'm having is that I'm not sure if I'm looking at it correctly or not. And it's all very interesting to me, this, becoming a business broker in the future, just because I have lots of friends that have businesses, and it's like, well, I might as well reach out to them and see if there's any interest on that side in the future. But for now, this truck parking that I'm trying to position, I'm not sure if I'm looking at the calculations on how I'm estimating the business side of it appropriately, if it's still very similar to just by looking at the NOI and looking at the cap rate and then maybe getting a value for the business.
So the language in business brokerage is a little different. The principles are somewhat the same. what we are looking for in a business and in their, tax returns, financials, and all that, we're trying to get to something that's called seller's discretionary earnings, or SDE, on smaller businesses. And then on middle market, we're looking at EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. The only difference between the two is that SDE is really EBITDA plus the owner's compensation, plus, one owner's compensation. Because what we're looking for is after, based on all the money that comes in and all the money that's required to go out to operate the business, how much is left to the discretion of the business owner, right? So we know that a lot of business owners run all kinds of expenses through the business that aren't necessary for the successful operation of the business, like the boat slip and the kids' college tuition and, the vacation home up in the mountains. So any of those expenses, we try to identify those and add those back to the bottom line to get a seller's discretionary earnings. And then businesses are sold typically on a multiple of SDE. And usually that multiple is going to vary depending on the level of SDE. So, for example, if you have a business that's generating, $60,000 in SDE, that business is probably going to sell for 1 to 1.5 times the SDE. But if it's generating $160,000 annually in SDE, it's going to probably sell for 2 to 2.5 times the SDE.
Okay.
So we don't really use cap rates, although it's, a multiple of, it's kind of an inverse almost of a cap rate. But really what's critical in what you're talking about is determining what is the seller's discretionary earnings, and that would include, like I said, if it's a S Corp, you add, or, whatever, you add back one owner's compensation. So in order to calculate SDE.
Okay. Is there a place that I can get more educated on everything that you just discussed within EXP, or do I need to go to register, or I don't even know if I should pass this over to a business broker or not, just because in a sense it's land
Yeah.
that I'm selling. And
what's the value of the land, and what's the top line revenue of the business?
So the value of the land right now is at 29,000 an acre times 8 acres.
Okay.
And then the business itself, the NOI, the income minus the expenses, the NOI is around 43,000. And there's no debt. So basically they're,
yeah, and so
43.
Around 43,000. So I mean, is it possible that somebody would come in and want to buy the land and do something else with it?
An RV park.
Yeah, so they may not care about to them, the business may have no value whatsoever. I would say, you can, in a situation like that, with the dollars that you're talking about, you could probably take the value of the land and add, 40 grand to it, for the business, and just make it a land deal. You don't even need to sell. Typically in a transaction, when there's real estate and a business, there's 2 escrows that are set up, or at least in California, they're sold separately, because it's sold separately but closing simultaneously. And the reason for that is because the laws are different in business sales versus real estate sales. Real estate, you have, title, and you've got recordings and things like that you don't have in business. So, but when the business is small or may become irrelevant, then sometimes it's better just to tack a little bit extra on as a premium for the land and just sell the land. If you can get the premium for the business, you just include all the business assets and be done. But it sounds like there's not really any much business assets anyways, because if he's using it for truck parking, you know.
Yeah. It's still producing very good income. I just didn't know how to price it out.
Yeah.
Because obviously they still invested money in adding gravel and stuff like that, right? To make it into the truck parking. So they want to recoup that.
Yeah.
Those expenses as well. So it's a
But
tough
I
one
think for you know, when you're looking at an SDE, which the NOI would be kind of equivalent to the SDE, unless he's got a lot of expenses in there that you aren't aware of yet, that are not really necessary for business operations. But at 43,000, the value of that is probably going to be around 40, 50 grand, because it's not financeable. I mean, nobody's going to, it's not enough to live on for most people. So you're not going to have a buyer that's going to come in unless they have another source of income already, because they're not going to be able to probably live off of that. And if they could live off of that, they probably don't have a bag of cash sitting around or have, 40, 50 grand that they could pay for it. And it's not financeable without the land, because it's too small. I mean, I think even it might be SBA microloans. It might be, I think, but a lot of banks don't even like to do the SBA microloans because there's a lot of paperwork and they're more time than what the bank actually earns from them. So a lot of them won't do them.
Okay.
So,
All right.
I mean, I think you probably, I would, based on the information I have, which obviously is minimal, but I would probably take a look at just adding it as a premium onto the land and selling it that way, just as a land deal.
Okay. Good information.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.